Does say it.
We are recording. If anyone else
Says it
here
when you're
is
right.
recording, please let me know. No one else is.
No.
Thank you.
Well, reminder.
The reminder, publications just
Yeah.
walked in. Hi. So Jim is running a little late and he asked me to step in and he should be arriving shortly, hopefully. So at this point, what I'd like to do is open our meeting and conduct roll call of Financial Oversight Committee. And we'll start to my right.
Rich Ficero.
Kathy Hill, Town Council.
Dawn Starks.
Anna Jones, Town Council.
Connor O'Shea, Town Council ex officio.
Thank you. And we also have Kim Collins, Finance Director, and, Tom
That other guy over there.
Christensen, our
Another guy
manager.
over there.
And we also have, actually, I'm going to turn it over to Connor.
Great, thank you. And then I'll call the special town council meeting to order as well. And we have in attendance Marilyn Richards in addition to Kathy, myself, and Anna.
Saw Ralph coming in. He's on his way.
Perfect.
There he is. Okay. So, there are meeting minutes that have been submitted to Jim. We don't know if Jim has them or not. Once he comes, we can find out. And once everyone's had a chance to get them, it may be this meeting, it may be next week, or Jim may have to approve out of necessity. We'll deal with that as it comes. Last week, we had the school department superintendent and business manager come and speak to us about the school budget. And we had a list of questions and we had a really well-rounded and comprehensive discussion. So this week, we are here to have some discussion about what we saw, what we thought, and lead down the path of taking a vote on the school budget. So at this point, I will continue in Jim's tradition of being pretty much wide open unless things get people speaking over one another on any discussion thoughts they had regarding our discussion.
Well, I felt like they did comply with the town manager's request for their budget amount. I think they clearly took that to heart and did it.
I would just say I think they did a great job explaining everything and providing a lot of detail, especially a lot of the confusion around different accounts and things having similar names but actually being different. So that was really helpful.
Jim, perfect timing. Just opened up discussion on the school budget and people's comments.
Yep.
And we tabled for now the draft meeting minutes because we weren't sure if that got through to you or not.
I didn't see him.
It's okay. So I'm handing the meeting over to you as you sit down.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I know.
It's in my outbox.
I swear,
Well,
are you good?
Discussion of the school budget discussion, comments. Sorry you weren't able to be there, Ralph.
That's okay. I'm certain everyone else was able to do a wonderful job.
Well, we had our pre-recorded questions, so, and I believe you saw the answers along with us, so. Anybody want to start off? Any initial comments? Rich?
I already pretty much expressed that I felt the school department did an admirable position in complying with the town manager's request for budget.
Yeah. Kathy?
Well, I would agree with both Rich and Connor on, their presentation, how transparent it was. how complex it is. You know, they have to, I'll borrow Don's word again, how different expenses become cross-pollinated with different sources. It's very complex. As similar to the situation we're in with, we want to make sure there's enough room. We don't want to tax to the levy limit. They're in a position as it relates to school choice monies and how much you can use, you know, pay toward reducing expenses. And Pam made a good point about that when the point was made about if the Chapter 70 funds should increase regardless, and it were to flow to the schools, she would prefer to use whatever that extra amount is, and, you know, sort of escrow it as an additional cushion. So, I mean, that's something to think about, but that remains to be seen because there's still a couple of iterations of that budget before the final cherry sheets are out. But clearly they're up against the wall as well. And there's no reason to think their expenses will drop in any manner when we're back in this situation next year. So it's concerning that we could be in the same situation with them again, that, you know, they have to shave positions or redeploy how they deliver the product because of inability to continue to fund at the level that would keep them whole. Does that make sense?
Did you already have other people?
I opened up the
Oh, okay.
floor, so
All right.
Rich and Connor had spoke, both of them.
Anna, your thoughts?
There's so much in that budget and they have so much going on. I just think you can tell they put a lot of time and effort into meeting the needs this year. And they're always so willing to explain and be helpful for us to understand it. I think they did a really good job.
And Connor, you already made your comments.
Yeah, it was similar remarks that, you know, they did a good job explaining and it was very detailed.
I've got a couple of things.
Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
I really like what Kathy said and how she expressed it. I couldn't have said it better.
And I couldn't even remember to write.
And discussion
It'll come to me. Yeah, and discussion
Everything's
ensued.
recorded. We are recorded.
I think what struck all of us, it sounds like, is a extreme complexity. As I said last week, I have real concerns about how the state is handling things. It does not sound like there's a game plan. And as we know, there are many iterations of the budget coming. And it does look like, at least for next year's fiscal budget as well, we may well be in the same position as we look around. Other towns are in same position or worse.
Yeah.
And I would advocate that we continue to maintain our policy of being as fiscally prudent as we can. Many times in the past, when there have been uncertainties with budgets or the economy, and I think we've got both of these playing in right now, we have been prudent and it has served us well. It's kind of nice when you sit and you say, like we did last year, I remember I kept saying, we're sitting in the catbird seat because we were really well positioned. And I think that played somewhat to this year. Difficult decisions have had to be made with personnel. And I encourage the school committee as well as the school department to look for other cuts other than personnel. Those are always the last you want to do. And I'm glad to hear they are looking down for the following fiscal year, because we need some long-term planning here. And I was very well pleased that they met the town manager's goal of 2.5%. I think we need to have some equity and balance. We are having the full brunt of the school will be hitting in our August tax bill. And I think with that in mind, we should maintain some parity between the school and the town until we figure out what's going on statewide and locally.
Ralph, did you want to?
You know, I always have something to say. I think you guys have said it very well. The school budget is very in-depth. There's a lot going on with it. That's why the school committee spends so much time going over it. That's why they're elected. I look at the town council and the town side of this as it's up to us to allocate X number of dollars to them. And it's up to them to prudently allocate it and spend it as need be to make sure as many services are done that can possibly be. And it was very nice to see that 2.5% being held to. I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult all around. But I just think going forwards, we're probably going to be in this boat for a little bit unless something drastic changes, especially with the special ed and all. The cost just keeps going up, and there's only so much money to go around. So, but it was nice reviewing and actually hearing explanations and reading them. It does help give you a view of it, of what they have to go through to get to that. So I do appreciate it.
Marilyn?
You know, having been involved in town government for a few years, I've seen how we worked with the school committee, and it hasn't always been like it was at our last meeting. I just felt that everyone recognizes that we are struggling with how to meet, the financial needs of our schools as well as our departments. And I was just so pleased with how open and honest they were with everything that they were asked to comment on. And I really hope that at some point we can replace some of those positions that have been cut. But at this point, who knows? But I really appreciate how it went, because it hasn't always been that way. And I like what everyone else said. I agree with all of you. It's been tough.
And Tom and Kim, I actually wasn't going to ask because I figured you guys did the most and kind of helped, work with them to build it. But if you have any final comments on the discussion, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. I mean, again, everybody's sort of nailed it. I mean, it's very, very difficult. There are a million moving parts. And again, Pam and Gordon have been fantastic the last 2 years with us and sharing information and trying to put the town budget together, right? It's the town budget, and that's one of the departments and one of the components. And so we have some work to do. We have offered sort of to be on board with this plan moving forward, this FY 27 and beyond, to try to make sure we can collaborate this number moving forward for the whole community. So again, it's a lot, and I appreciate that they were able to come down to where we needed to be to make sure we didn't get to that limit. So
okay, yeah, and my only comments is, again, I agree with everyone else and certainly appreciated the thorough discussion and explanation that we had last week. And I want to compliment the town manager, the finance director, because really, and school administration and the school committee, because really all that hard work was done getting to that 2.5% number. And my hat off to all of you for working together to get there, because it wasn't without some pain and a lot
of course.
with that said, I would entertain a motion if one is comfortable to recommend to the town council that that portion of the town manager's budget be approved.
I move that we accept the school budget as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments,
I
questions?
have one.
Yes, Rich.
Could we add an amendment that as the superintendent and assistant superintendent business reference, that if there is an increase in aid, that the town send it directly to the schools?
So here's what I was thinking about that, is that we vote about the budget. Then we do that separately, maybe as just a consensus, like suggestion, recommendation to the town council. Because there's really no actionable thing for that until that happens, and it would be kind of beyond the budget, would happen after the budget is approved. At least that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Does
That
make
makes
to
sense.
people?
Yeah.
Okay. So without that amendment, it would be as moved by Dawn. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, I guess is it a roll call? Do we have anybody on?
No,
Nope.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And back to Rich's comment. There was that question about what happens if the additional monies are added to the chapter 70. And I know from my standpoint, I would look favorably upon that if that were to occur and happen, although it would happen after we would also have had to approve the budget, the city, the town council. But if that were to be approved, certainly from my standpoint, I would be, it would be fine from my standpoint that the town council could earmark that for additional monies to the school. Other people, how do you feel? I know how Rich feels. So, Kathy?
It would be nice to see an increase. I'm gonna assume that if there is an increase, it's not gonna be monumental, because it looks as though when you look at trends or the last, the first iteration of preliminary cherry sheet, they move money from one column, like they decrease it like by 100,000, and then in another line, they bump it up 200,000. And so you're only netting at the bottom a little bit. So every dollar counts, but I would be in favor of suggesting that when the time comes.
I think it would be incumbent upon the town council to make that final decision.
Yes.
And see where the numbers come in. I'm neutral on this. I feel that if it is not that much, it would be bottom line is, I think it's town council, because then they'll have a clearer picture of where we sit and more concrete findings, especially with how many positions are actually lost, or perhaps we can save some. And I'm sure that school committee and the administration are looking at ways to play with things to make it the least impactful. So I'm kind of punting.
You're punting in terms of if the 185 or some number was added to the chapter 70,
I would,
not necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily be suggesting to the town council that money be added back to the school committee or the education budget,
correct. Just, I would like them to look at the entire budget,
town budget.
at the entire town budget. And if they feel that that's where it goes, that's great. But they have the bird's eye view there, being able to see.
If I could tag onto that, it would also, I'd want to wait on that decision now until after June 30th, when Kim has a chance to look at how each of the departments fell with their money, did somebody have 15,000 extra? Is another line item 20,000 short? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What do you call reconciling? To see, if, and that money would then go to free cash, right?
Yes,
To the potential free cash in October.
yes.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Obviously, I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Yeah.
But my understanding was the school's got a 2.5% increase in their budget, and that's what we're voting on.
Yes.
The Chapter 70 is actually a reimbursement to the town to help afford schools. So that money should go to the town, and considering our town managers already reduced our levy by roughly 300,000 more than what he wanted to in order to fund everything, it doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't seem to make sense to then take whatever additional Chapter 70 and increase the school budget above.
So I don't think this would be any, this would, yes, I mean, understand, because the budget itself would be what's being presented by the town manager. So this would be more a suggestion after the fact if that Chapter 70 were increased. Yeah,
It would be my suggestion that
to make no suggestion.
to make no suggestion, because we don't know, and this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
And so my question is going to be to Kim, the Chapter 70, the final number or whatever, that's usually what, September or something when they finally decide.
It usually comes pretty close to like right after you've approved the budget, I would say. I don't think it's as far as September. I don't think it's that far.
So if we get reimbursed at that, that goes into typically the general fund, and then the town manager would be looking to distribute how you saw fit.
But it's not like the money comes in and we decide where we're going to put it. When you consider their budget is well above, the 17,000, I think that we would get, 17 million that we would get from Chapter 70. So whether we get an additional 70 grand or we get an additional 170 grand, we're already really giving that to the schools at this point. And I think to Ralph's point, we cut into the levy by 331,000 in order to get to this budget that's being presented to you. So technically, if more money was offered through Chapter 70, it would just kind of reduce that amount that we dug into the levy. Or if you decided to add it to the school's budget, that means we still use $331,000 in our levy. It's just we got this little extra amount that we can now add to their budget.
Right.
And, I think the bigger concern is you can add money to the school budget, but they're already subsidizing quite a bit of their budget with school choice funds or through transportation revolving funds. And, so you can add more money to the budget, to support salaries, but you're still digging into those other funds to support supplies and different things within their budget. So they're still technically in a deficit. So it's, and I think that was to Pam's point that if they did get any extra money, it would really just be supporting the supplies budget as opposed to pulling it from revolving funds so that they can keep those reserves. I think that was kind of the point that she was making there.
Well, I think it's important to understand that there was a major impact with this budget. I asked Mr. Christensen, what's the impact on the town side? He said minimal. I asked that question to the superintendent, and he said it was a major impact. 23 people walked out the door. And I can't see why, if Chapter 70 money is increased, why it wouldn't go to the schools. That is what Chapter 70 is.
Well, like Ralph, it offsets what we pay for the school. So if the Chapter 70 number goes up, then our portion just goes down. And it's still well above what we're supposed to pay for schooling, right? So, and we dug into that levy.
Right.
So if there's any alteration to that state aid number, I want to replace the levy first. And the impact of the 2.5% was far greater than the 2.21% on all the other town departments. You know what I mean? So The impact was because we could absorb 2.2% on this side and the school couldn't live with a 2.5% increase to their budget. You know what I mean?
I can follow it.
And the one last thing I'd like to add is if the school runs into an issue like they did a few years ago and they ran short, they came to the council, they asked for a transfer from free cash. We analyzed it and we gave it to them. And I think that's the proper way for it to work. That way you know what their budget is, it's there. If there's a shortfall for some reason, they come in, they ask, they explain it. If we have the money in free cash, we take care of it.
And I think that maybe is what Kathy was driving at is we keep budgeting this dollar amount and taxing the community for 12 months. And then we turn back all this money. We have to stop taxing everybody for the whole year just to turn back money. And we'd rather be closer to the line so that if we need to supplement someone's budget, it's with free cash and we haven't taxed everybody for the whole year. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of like over withholding and getting a
Yeah,
refund.
your taxes withholding too much.
Anna?
I think we should definitely hold off. First of all, we don't know if this money is coming or not. And second of all, we don't know when and what shape will be when we get it. So I don't think we should guarantee it to the school or suggest to send it to the school by the town.
Reasonable discussion. I think partly my thought process was they're losing 19 positions. The town side is not losing any. We're okay with where we are at this point. The 185 would just be something supplemental to it. And it sounded like they're dipping into a bunch of their reserves to get by this year, which they may be able to use to help get by next year if they got it. But it isn't something that needs to be determined at this point because it hasn't been.
It's a slippery slope because using those reserves to fund the operating budget just creates a hole that we have to fill next year.
Yeah.
This is why they were at the $3 million ask this year because they had to supplement the special ed budget this year. And then add to whatever that increase was for FY26. So it's a very slippery slope.
So I don't think I hear any kind of motion coming from any committee member regarding that potential 185 add to the chapter 70. Does anyone have a motion they wanted to make?
Well, I'm more than happy to make the motion. Like I can sense the feeling in the room. I guess I'll make the motion that if we do receive any additional funds through chapter 70, that the town council review it and if possible, pass it on to the schools.
Do I hear a second? I'll make a second just for discussion. That was a nice soft way of putting it, Rich. Any other discussion beyond what we had? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed?
No.
All right, and I'm on the fence. So you got one abstain, 1 for, and 3 opposed. So motion does not carry. Okay. I think the sentiment is clear,
Correct.
but it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse. All right. And Anna, my humble apologies. You sent it to me.
No need to apologize.
And
Should have got it to you
I
sooner.
kept looking for it and I must have forgotten to keep looking for it. Now I can't seem to pull it up. I was thinking maybe I could have it printed off or something. I don't think anybody's here. Right?
I could do it.
Minutes?
I could do it
Yeah,
potentially.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm the LCAT director right now.
You could approve out of necessity.
Just do it then.
It's up to you.
Well, other than the school department discussion, the education budget.
Yeah, there
was
wasn't
just
much.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
Right.
Yeah,
How do people feel about that?
I don't see a real need to rush it because
Right.
we had all the answers in writing from the school department already. They reinforced what they had written.
Yeah.
I think we can wait to look at the minutes later.
All
I
right,
think 90% of it was a recap of their
Right.
answers,
Yeah.
and then 2 motions.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it.
all right, then we'll defer the review of the minutes. My apologies.
No, please don't apologize.
So moving on, we'll just go to the revolving funds.
What packet is that in?
Tell me where that is.
I think it's in this one.
Well,
It's in here.
I have 34, 43, and then I have Council on Aging.
34 or 43.
35 of 43.
I don't know. I don't look at pages.
Well, no, that's an enterprise fund. I had to pull them from
Page 34, 35, and 36.
From the first packet or
Yeah,
the?
first packet.
First.
Okay.
Find that.
and then there was the
Does that include
the ambulance fund.
Oh, the ambulance.
Um,
2805 and
So the first one was page 34 of 43, which are solid waste and
Mhm.
I don't even know whether, do these actually considered budgets for us to review and make recommendations on?
yeah, so they have to be, the amounts have to be voted on.
Okay.
Everything that you see in the charts are actually in the bylaw. There's certain revenue sources that are put into these revolving funds, they're listed there. And then there's certain expenses that they can pay. And then every year they just set a limit, a spending limit, which is what can be reserved in the account at the end of the year to be used for the following year. So they just set for 2805, they set the spending limit at 155,434, and then for 2809, which is Council on Aging, they set it at 26,620.
Who is they, Kim?
Solid Waste is the Health Department, and Council on Aging, that's their revolving fund, 2809.
And is it that the town council authorizes?
Yep, that's the only thing they vote on is the dollar amount.
Through the chair,
Yes.
just a quick question, Kim. On the health department, I know mattresses is part of their revenue.
Yes.
We increase the revenues from the mattress. Is that going to affect this? Because it says estimated revenues 150,000. If all of a sudden the mattress fees are $75 a piece instead of 30 or whatever, they go up, which would probably be quite a bit.
So you only set the spending limits, not the revenue amounts, but if more money rolls into that account, they still have a limit at the end of the year that they can keep. So anything above that 155,434 rolls into the general fund on June 30th.
Okay.
And yes, the new rates were used to come up with the new numbers for FY 26.
Does this mean that up to 155 can be kept in the revolving account?
So basically, they set their spending limit at what can be held in it for the following year, and then that's what's available to them the following year.
It's amazing how specific the numbers are.
Well, they do it based on a budget, so.
Okay. All right, and then Council on Aging works the same way?
Yes.
Questions on either one?
I move to support the FY 2026 spending limits and revolving funds of the Solid Waste Disposal and Council on Aging.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
oppo- any-
Sorry. Sorry, I'm multitasking.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. Solid waste revolving?
We just did that.
Didn't you put them in
Yeah.
one? You
Yes,
didn't?
I did.
The one-
I put them both in
Solid waste. Oh,
Yep.
okay, sorry, I'm on
So we-
that. I have the detail on it. Yep.
recreation.
All right. Move to recreation.
It's mostly informational. That doesn't require a vote.
All right.
Okay.
What's our next one then?
Ambulance?
A recreation department?
No, it doesn't.
Rec doesn't, yeah.
Sometimes I can't hear it.
The section of the general law for the other two is 3E1/2 or whatever that requires the revolving for rec in the D does not. It's mostly there just so everybody knows what's going on.
The ambulance revolving fund need votes.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, this one had actually revenue and expenses. This is the one where the issue was,
The receipts reserved for appropriation so that the budget can't be more than the balance at the time of the vote. Did I say that right? In the right order?
Yep.
Which is even more difficult to plan, obviously, but we've sort of put some pins in some things that as we collect the revenue.
I want to reference the last time we discussed this. You have to set them out like 3 months in advance or something.
When they vote on this budget, when the council votes on this budget, the budget amount can't be more than what we have for a balance in the account at the time.
Okay,
So we still have another, June of revenue,
exactly, okay.
but we can't budget for that revenue because that's how the law works. And again, it sparked some conversation on whether or not we want this account to operate under this law. But that's how it was started and that's how it's been operating. So we'll have further conversations and possibly this may be a different account next year.
what kind of alternative?
Well,
Could be in the general fund.
could be in the general fund. Don't say that.
It could be an enterprise. I mean, the revenue would flow to the general fund and the expenses would flow to the general fund and then you wouldn't be, you could set a budget for it as opposed to having to rely on the money that's sitting in the fund at the time. It could be in an enterprise fund. It, could be in a receipts reserve. Those are kind of the options that we have.
Everything's going.
Because it certainly doesn't work like the other two revolving funds that we just reviewed.
No. They're under different laws.
So the way we're doing it right now is kind of a handicap.
Yeah, in ways. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think originally we expected the growth of the balance of this account to be there already, so to speak, where we wouldn't have to work. We could budget for whatever we needed to because the balance in the account would have some retained earnings at this point. It just hasn't. And talking about Medicare and Medicaid and these kind of things where 30% of our trips are paying for the whole year's budget. Kim had put some information together with Don, right?
Yep.
About our collections. And I think we billed out $5.7 million up to this point, and we were allowed to collect 1.8 million. So
the way the budget is built, the budget looks like an enterprise fund budget,
Right.
as opposed to a.
right. The problem just becomes our revenue basis never gets filled by, can I say the rider? I shouldn't say that. The recipient of the ride, if they're on Medicare, doesn't pay our revenue share. So, like I said, we billed out almost $6 million and we're sitting at 1.8. This is just how the law is. This is what, like the state trying to keep up with the school stuff. They're not keeping up with Medicaid either. So
What's sounded originally to be like a really great thing and
Yep.
now turning into.
Well, it's just, I think it's still working, like we're, at least we're breaking even, but I think, we do, I don't want to say, we're gonna look into it to see if there's something better here. Again, until there's another drastic change somewhere else, I don't know how much more we can do even with an enterprise fund. Aside from just jacking the rates to the people with the private insurance companies, and then when do those companies say, nope, you can only charge us this much for a ride, and then we're missing all the revenue. So it's a difficult equation like most, but we'll continue to look into it.
Questions on the ambulance revolving fund? I think we have a number of questions, but I don't know that.
Right.
I have
I think
questions.
Connor has.
Yes, Connor.
I know how it works now with we can't, approve in the budget more than what we already had, like up to that point, but are we able to revise that number up to that point when we get closer to the vote instead of, numbers that may have been put together months or weeks ago? I don't know that it's gonna help us
Potentially.
all that
Yeah, I
much,
suppose
but-
you could. I mean,
We were sort of just talking about this too, with all the, the hearing opening in the first meeting, and then getting all the warrant and all the language, I said warrant, all the motions, language in, and having all this information so that when you show up, when you have to read whatever it is, 20 motions, we have that all set. And if we can certainly change those numbers right up to that point, but I think we're sort of projecting it already. And we have the capital account that we had those two things that should be in this fund and they're not. And
yeah, that's true.
that would be where that movement would be.
When we talked about the capital projects budget, we had, in our recommendation, we had left the wiggle room of some movement between the ambulance fund and the general fund.
Yes. Which is what we requested and what we're hoping as we're projecting this revenue. So that on May 27th,
Available.
there could, on top of what we've budgeted for expenses, so that we can put that bond payment into the budget. So I think we'll be watching it right up to the day, if that's your question.
Yeah.
And then if we can switch, where that funding's coming from for one or both of those capital projects, we will. I mean, I think both is a pipe dream probably, but maybe the smaller payment we can get into the budget. We'll keep an eye on it. This is how, and again, this is what the fire department has to do. And they've done it for 3 years now, from March to June, is watch their revenue and expenses getting to that vote. Which again, might be a little helpful if it was a different type of account. But again, those more analysis than just this conversation we're having has to go into that.
Not that it'll change anything. I'm just curious, do we know the lag time between submission of claims and how long it takes? Does it take a long time for the actual revenue, even if it's only 30%, to get back here?
It's not bad.
No,
I think
it's
our collection is already up around 90%, right?
Yeah,
For
like
that.
Medicare is pretty instant. Like those payments come in pretty instantly. The insurance companies, that's not really the issue. It's more the patient's responsibility that, they spend more time collecting, but the majority of the payments come in pretty quickly.
How do people feel about the ambulance fund? I mean, I'm not sure I'm that knowledgeable enough about it. I feel like I'm more accepting of the budget as opposed to like approving, I have no objection to it. It sounds like it's kind of in the state of review and flux, and
There's a couple of moving
on.
parts attached to it. Yeah.
We do realize a profit usually, don't we?
Yeah. We haven't last year. I think we profited 130.
Yeah, the year before was a loss.
The year before was a loss, and then 23 was an actual profit of almost a half a million. So it's not always like this. And in those years, like, yeah, you don't have to worry about this conversation we're having. But again, and I joke about this with our new chief, it's kind of hard to root for revenue in this particular department.
Do I hear any kind of motion regarding the ambulance fund?
So before a motion, I'm just curious,
Yes, Ron.
under expenses, the personnel services. So the EMTs and stuff like that.
Correct. That's personnel services is the salary line item. Yep.
I mean, that's the one that's really increased. If you look from like 23 to 26 at $1,084,000, now to $1,609,000.
Yep.
So it looks like the revenue and all has stayed flat. And our costs have jumped $600,000 in salaries.
Correct.
We keep going up at that rate. And we're not increasing our rates at the same amount. In 2 more years, we're gonna be losing money each year on this.
Right. And so obviously all part of the equation / conversation, but that was, we were still growing the department. And we were just looking at this, we have negotiations with this unit right now. There is for paramedics, there's a jump from year 1 to year 2 to 4, in which their salary has a big increase. And most of our paramedic staff is
In that.
under 5 years. And so that's that realization of the jump in salary from this. And in actuality, the breakdown, right? Like our fire station right now is like 75-25. Where you haven't even really moved enough money to the ambulance fund because of the revenue that we should. We're like half and half with the budgets. They're almost exactly the same with the general fund budget for the fire department. In the general fund, it has like half the employees over here, the field employees, firefighter, paramedics. The way the numbers work and what their workload is, 3/4 of that salary number should be in the ambulance fund. We just can't get them there because we don't have the revenue.
So with that, I mean, when you start and look at, the revenue and the average cost, so they've got the average bundled Comstar top 50, just for a BLS is 1769, and that's the average. And we're proposing 1403, which is $366 less per trip. Wouldn't it make more sense to lose the rate even $50 more?
So Comstar, yeah, so good question. And I'm actually glad you brought this up because I asked the same question. Comstar is our billing company, which includes all the private ambulance services who charge way more than everybody else that operates ambulance in the community. So we're actually above average in terms of municipal ambulance. That average bundled Comstar top 50 is pulling all the national companies that are charging way too much for an ambulance ride.
Truthfully, that shouldn't even be in there then.
It probably shouldn't.
This is just downloaded from Comstar, so this is what this is what is available to us in terms of comparisons. In order to get municipal ones, we'd have to kind of reach out to other municipalities and pull those amounts. This was put together as a way to show a 4% increase in the rates, and this is what Comstar gives us as comparables. And it also gives us the Medicare fee schedule, which is why
really why we wanted it.
It would be nice to at least be able to go forwards into next budget year to see what the comparables are.
Yep.
Yeah, we could do municipal ones.
Communities.
And I'm pretty sure Chris brought them in to our budget meeting. Well, Chris and Paul, I guess Paul would have been here still. So we saw all that, and that's why we didn't go up to 17.
That makes more sense.
Right. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
The average is 17, 14, and we're gonna make 54,000.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but
no, you're right.
This makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Good question.
So Tom, we actually, we're actually carrying costs of running our own ambulance system in the fire department costs because we don't have we can't generate the revenue in the ambulance fund. Now, the reason we went into the ambulance fund was because we were paying outside services to have ambulance services accessible to our residents here in East Long Meadow.
Before, correct.
So
And so
this was offsetting that cost that we were paying.
Yep.
To do that.
And I think the reason that the ambulance fund was created to just keep it out of that general fund number as we grew. And so again, it's still growing, right? I mean, even most of our staff that seems like have been here forever, most of them are in the 3 to 5 year window. It's like still like kind of growing. So I think the thought was there at the beginning, which was good. And now we need to sort of look at what's actually happening now here in year 5, 6, whatever, wherever we're in. And, you know, when you talk to Carrie, the administrative assistant, 3/4 of her time is on ambulance. Her whole salary is on the fire department side. Same with the. Same with the.
That's why I guess at this point in time and the growth of the years that we've had it now, I guess it didn't dawn on me that there's still so much being paid for in the general fund for ambulance.
Because we're still separating it out. And we've run into a little bit of a hiccup here with the revenue on the ambulance side. And I think if you looked at the first couple years, it looked like we would be at 1/4 of the fire department and in the fire side in the general fund. And we're still half and half. We can't seem to budge from this half and half.
Right.
So we're putting our heads together. And I think there's a lot of this.
I guess we always have to constantly make sure that it's still making sense for the town that, you know, that we do it internally versus.
Yeah, well, again, like a lot of our stuff, we're providing a better service for our community members at a cheaper rate than like the average rate for a private is, like Ralph just pointed out, $400 more at minimum. And so the fact that we're doing it here and we're responding quicker, and because of, again, our demographics aren't paying us the revenue we want, but we have a lot of people that need that quick ambulance, and it's nice to have it right down the road.
Can I add an
Sure.
additional fact to that? Having worked in emergency department, Bay State, you see a lot of the same people. And it's kind of nice to see the same paramedics, EMTs, bringing the people into the emergency room. There's a nice connection there between that person who obviously is sick and seeing the same people coming in with the ambulance. It's a great intangible effect. It does provide a great service to the town.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as I say, working there, I see the same people many times.
Yep. And again, we have an outstanding staff that does it as good as anyone. So it's one of those, again, only $50 for a dump sticker, but it should be 300. But we're going to keep it at 50 because it's nice to drive down the street and dump something that you'd have to pay who knows what if you brought it somewhere else. So we're still providing a service to the public. And sometimes the numbers don't work perfect, but it's still good for the town.
Do I hear a motion to recommend approval of the town manager's ambulance revolving fund?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good discussion.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing up that.
Next, we move to the reserve policy. Moving on our agendas.
Kicking it down the road, I believe.
But it's not a can. It's not a can.
I did not say that.
That's page 28.
Did you say?
28, is it 28?
Yes, page 28, and Kim had been kind enough to send us the financial policies, financial reserves policy, as well as some discussion from DLS. So the free cash policy is to try to be at 8%. Kim,
Free cash says at least 5%.
at least 5%, and we are at 8%. Wonderful. Is there a range that you try to get to?
I mean, typically the ranges are within 3%, so it's probably like 5 to 8.
5 to 8.
Yeah.
So we're on the upper end. Nice.
When we did all the transfers to stabilization and stabilization, OPEB, when we did all those transfers, we kind of aimed for 8%, just reserves at a point where we're earning enough interest to let roll into the general fund to create more free cash on a regular basis and to have cash flow as we're paying for regular projects within the capital fund and stuff like that.
Kim, as I reviewed this, I didn't understand the category that said total votes.
I'm sorry?
It says total votes. I understand that underneath each of the categories.
It's the votes the town council
Oh.
took in terms of money.
That we took,
Yeah,
So they give a number.
10 vote.
it just, it should have,
Show the dollar sign.
It's-
That's
yeah.
what-
Where's
Oh,
that?
is he looking at?
28.
Number or it just shows dollar sign.
Oh, yeah.
I was just looking at the policy. I wasn't looking at that.
So those are all the votes that we've taken for free cash.
It's $5,276,024.75.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But the dollar sign threw me off. That's why, on the total vote.
Oh,
Oh,
And then here's,
Maybe.
we'll stick with the way it's presented here on page 28. So the enterprise funds, I think when we were talking about enterprise funds, you had indicated your target is 20%.
yep.
And then in stormwater, is it also 20% or are you, is that target something higher?
The 20% is sort of a blanket number. And I think stormwater is another one of those accounts that's sort of on the rise. It's only been around for a handful of years, 4 or 5 years. So it's hard we could adjust it.
Yeah.
But again, we're looking at if 20% of that budget is not a very large sum of money. So we're trying to, once that the account is never going to get to where water and sewer are because there's not really a revenue usage kind of thing. I think maybe if we could call it out as something different, maybe 50%. Fact is, if anything happens with stormwater related, like a culvert or something like that, we're going to stabilization. We're not going to do this. Same with a large water break, something like that. $900,000 isn't going to fix anything. We're going to need more money than that. So 20% is sort of a guideline, right?
Minimum.
That's a minimum number, I guess is what we're,
Okay. Because I think we're at,
70.
yeah.
LCAT's even funnier.
Yeah. 200 and something percent.
So Tom, having said that, if a culvert goes and we're going to go to stabilization because it will cost 3.5 million or, I'm pulling a number out of the sky. Do we need to really have that much in stormwater or does this just?
If that much in the retained earnings, yeah, I mean, if we didn't have to go to stabilization, that would be great. If it was a bank collapse or something and it was 110,000, well, we have stormwater money that can fix that.
Okay.
Instead of going to the general fund, we've collected monies for stormwater purposes. We might as well use that money to fix stormwater stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the percentage and then there's the actual dollar amount, which doesn't always line up. But again, it's just a minimum. And I think there's going to be a point where this is all we're going to end up at stormwater, meaning
Right.
it's not going to grow to a water department where it's got a $2 million budget. That doesn't really, we did it to satisfy the requirements of the MS4 permit for DEP. We now know that one person, if we could add a skilled worker with that foreman, at some point, they have a truck, they have the jet truck, they don't need much else in terms of a budget. So at some point, this stormwater budget will just be stagnant. And we're probably getting pretty close to that, you know, barring any major change in what we do operationally at DPW. So
That's actually good news in terms of then we're not constantly reviewing how we collect
yes.
the fees and
So the great news is that permit is now expired and DEP is working on a new one. So we'll see what that looks like. But again, this all started because they threw this $500,000 a year work that we had to perform and we had no funding to do it. So at some point, if we don't need it, or if the permit is now sort of that we got everybody where we wanted them now maintained and it costs less than it's been costing, then there's really no reason to keep, you know, incrementally raising this account to a point that doesn't even make sense.
Would you then look for this account and the retained earnings to be able to support replacement of the equipment that
That's
time would?
yes. And that's what the retained earnings account is doing for most of these. When we have the capital plan, the water, some of their projects, we're not going to the general fund for that money. That retained earnings is supporting, it's supposed to support itself, right? So we're using that stuff to buy materials, vehicles, and the salary of the employees under that division.
With the LCAT reserve,
Yep.
what is that earmarked for? What does that have a?
Well, it was earmarked for a new studio at some point.
Went to the new high school?
Correct. So it's not earmarked for anything. That's a weird enterprise account. We just get money from charter based on how many customers we have. So we're not charging our residents anything. Charter is sort of supporting the LCAT
Doing a good job at
vision, right?
charging us.
So,
Right.
and that obviously that money is continuing to diminish, and at some point will probably go away. So we'll have to sort of keep an eye on that, how fast that sort of wanes, both with technology increases, people unplugging these sorts of things, and East Long Meadow Fiber. I would assume we showed a lot of interest in this project by vote. The interest has only gone up since I've talked to everybody, and so as that revenue goes up for us, Charter's revenue is going to go down, and so is LCAT. So we're still we'll figure out a way how to roll LCAT. It's obviously a great service for the community, and we can't lose it. So we'll figure out a way to roll LCAT into the MLP or some sort of reorganization of some sort with LCAT and another department.
Say that again.
The whole thing, Jim?
No,
Got a handle on it.
roll into what?
MLP.
The municipal light plant,
Okay.
light plant, which will run fiber.
And this is where you might make use of some of this $500,000.
Well, if I'll be honest with you, if we start to see that this move is going to happen, we'll probably just fund this account using retained earnings the last year and then move it over.
Okay. All right. Good. Because I mean, it does seem like this would be for as it is.
Yep.
Be somewhat excessive, and it seems like the town could make use of some portion of this.
Yep. And that was Don Mackey's whole thought was, again, 256% seems huge, except for 235, whatever it is. It's still only $500,000, and we know what buildings cost and what a studio might cost and what that equipment is. So that would evaporate in one project. Even though like you said, the 235% seems absurd. The dollar amount is not so out of step with what Don had planned for it.
And I take it there really are no percentages in terms of the CPA balances. That it is whatever they grow to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we don't have anything in the reserve, right?
No.
It's just what it is. It's tucked in their little buckets and CPC can
Not utilized for projects, the money just grows and grows.
just, yep,
So you need it.
yep. So we'll have to keep using it for projects. And I think that we still keep that CPC section on the capital plan. Because if there's something that we can fund with CPC on the capital plan, we try to throw it in there.
Has the state been fulfilling their share as of late?
It's dwindling, I believe, considerably.
Actually, it grew over the last,
Did it?
back when I was chair, they had gotten down to less than 20% that they were financing. And it's grown quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Yep.
The last couple conversations I've had about the community preservation as a whole, like statewide, was that either it had started coming down or it pretty much is something that the state was.
Supposed to be funding it at 100%.
Right.
Oh.
I think they only did that the first year or two. So, but when you go from supposedly 100% and getting down to 15, 17%.
Yeah.
Now it's 30 or 40% that they're funding it at, which seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Triple. Through the chair.
Yeah, go right. And Ralph, unless it gets out of hand, go right ahead and ask your question.
Just in case someone else wanted to jump in, I want to jump back to the stormwater. 41 of 43.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at 25 usage charges was 6,713. And then level 2 for 2026, 66,713. So that's what we're charging. That's the revenue coming in. But yet you have a $6 increase in the rate. How can you have a $6 increase for 6,000 plus households and the rate not?
We've been working on this diligently since you
Yeah.
brought up how
I
you didn't
was-
like how we did it.
I was working on this today and I did speak with Bruce. I think I would like to reserve the opportunity to change this budget a little bit because if you look at any of the other funds, you can just multiply usage by rate and everything's great. You know what the revenue is going to be, and then you know what your expenses are, and then, you know, everything looks great. This has a chart that sometimes multiplies by, what is that called?
Impervious area.
Impervious area. Sometimes it's by parcel, sometimes. So there's,
That being said, I mean, we pretty much have been billing consistently, single family households, X amount. Their impervious surface really doesn't change.
right, but on everybody else it does. So when you look at that rate, you're only seeing the single family rate. There's a list of rates that are all different that are being filling out to everybody else.
I do know.
So what we did actually today was go through all those rates and try to increase them by a percentage for everybody as opposed to just adding $6 to everybody.
So my suggestion would be just the opposite. Let's keep our rates the same. I don't think the $6 is going to make that much of a difference. We have a surplus in that count of 70%. Our taxpayers are about to get walloped. And truthfully, I hear more complaints about this stormwater fee than I do about their taxes. Sounds ridiculous, but when they get that fee, I get the questions, what on God's earth is this? Because it rains, I get charged. And I just don't want to spend that much more time on it.
The thing I will say is tomorrow I will go through and look at the revenues that have been collected because in these funds for the stormwater, sewer and water, we have to collect what we say we're going to collect. And if we don't, we end up in a revenue deficit. And then we get a comment every year on our financials. We get a comment every year from DLS. Like we have to be
I'd be happy to respond to the comment.
collecting what we're saying we're going to collect. So what I'd like to do is just take some time tomorrow, look at our revenue collections, look at each of these funds, make sure we're on target. Because I think if you look at this 468 from last year, based on the way it was calculated, we weren't even collecting that at 47. So that's kind of why we said, let's increase the rate, but let's leave the revenue the same. And I'd like to take some time with Bruce's spreadsheet to go through every detailed line of it, recalculate everything by percentage or by fixed rate, whatever looks best, to make sure we're meeting our revenue goals.
I would love to stop in and have a discussion with you on it.
That'd be great.
Work from home tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll work from home tomorrow.
Lastly, that at least stabilization fund, the target is 8%, or is that a range too?
Ready, Jim?
Well, I was looking at the policy and I'm looking at page 30, but I'm having kind of trouble figuring it out from the table.
So it's a minimum of 8%.
Minimum 8%, okay. And is FY 25 4.2 million?
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at page 30 of 40.
It's your
It's gonna be
bar graph, right?
Paragraphs,
It
yeah. I don't know,
Last one with the dots and the,
Yeah, that was terrible.
that was, yeah.
but there's another one like page 31 of 43 that has like 5.777 as a target and 6,092,000 as current balance. So I wasn't quite sure.
Okay, so if you're looking at those bar charts that have the multiple colors on them.
Yeah,
Those were certified balances. So as of July 1st, 24, they weren't adjusted for any additional transfers that were made into those funds. So it was just taking a look at balances over time as they're certified on July 1st of 24. So, if you're looking at the chart, I mean. all
July
of our
1st of
reserves-
24. So what's the FY
This is,
25?
this is a picture of this.
No, I know, but I didn't see the stabilization.
And then the votes.
Did I missed the stabilization on this one?
So this
Yeah,
is
I'm dirty.
basically this year and back.
It's on the it's on the bottom, Jim.
It's right there.
So stabilization, we put right at.
Oh, 8%. All right. See, I was looking for a nice little box. I think you've pointed this out to me 2 other times.
So, but
Pretty
in,
decent shape.
yeah, I mean, in terms of reserves, like reserves have been growing on a regular basis. I think these are as of July 1st, 24, those are when they're certified. So those are kind of the balances that I compare on an annual basis here. And then if you look at the other charts, it shows you the target and where we stand at this point, which includes all of those additional transfers that were done.
Questions on the reserves or the reserve policy? I don't know that this is anything we need to vote on.
I don't,
I'm not feeling it.
It's not part of the budget.
right.
Just where would we feel comfortable going forwards, or do we?
100%.
No, I mean, we're being realistic. From what I understand is we're probably better than a huge percentage of the state of Massachusetts.
We are,
Like
Yeah,
99% of the state.
crazy.
other than Boston.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, realistically, should we be in the 20 million mark to make sure we're good?
I mean, realistically, our target is 100% and our target moves every single year. It just goes up and it's just going to continue to go up every single year. So
But I thought there was a point when we first set this up where they said if we get to X number of million, then interest and stuff on that, we wouldn't continually go farther behind.
I don't know what I'd have to look into
And
what that target.
originally, that was what our target was gonna be. So that way there, we never flip back.
Is that when the fund was created?
It was a long time ago.
No, that we can find it. There's got to be minutes and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and again, I think it was a discussion on it.
I mean, I'm sure that target has changed if it's been that long, right? Like But,
Probably changes every day, the way OPEB.
and yeah, but we could take a conservative estimate on what our interest rate would be and what it would look like. I mean, we could
Yeah.
try to project that out. So
Yeah, because there's got to be a point where we get to where the interest is so,
And that's what they had talked about. I want,
Yeah.
all right,
it was somewhere in the 20 million mark, but again, that was back then, which that same thing could be 40 million now.
Is
No,
that target,
moves.
right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
every time somebody retires,
it's moving exponentially is really what it's happening. You need to add the other part of that. And it's not one of these because everyone's getting paid more and costs us more and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
and we should have our financials any day now. So when we do, I can tell you what that new target is.
Are you still following a modus operandi of, looking at transferring at the end of the year, like free cash excess, or not that there's anything known as excess free cash, but like lumps at the end of the year, big lumps of free cash?
Well, I think we just
Did it.
did that not too recently, but I would say, yeah, on an annual basis, we should look at what those reserves are. So, we're usually certified by the end of October, November. So at that point, looking at all the reserves to see.
Because given our reserve level, that seems about the only path to be able to put any kind of meaningful amount into that OPEB.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Other questions on reserve? We are on to just a quick review of sources and uses and the projected tax rate. And I guess we could have looked at this two different ways. Just started here before we looked at the expenses.
It's usually a really good way to do it.
You could have suggested that, Kate.
but in our defense, we had a truncated,
Yes, we did.
we through, so this was something we can't really dictate for that.
And the sheet that's labeled proposed sources and uses is on page 4 of 40.
Or I can't find it.
And really, it's just a recap of what we've
Everything.
basically reviewed up till now. And under general fund, the first column, we see the excess levy that Tom and Kim keep talking about at the bottom of the page. No use of the capital stabilization fund. 100 going to the stabilization fund.
Because that's in the overlay. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Just a motion.
Page 5 is really just a pie chart of the revenues.
I just had a quick question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Compensated absences fund, how's that working out? That's relatively new-ish, right? Like 3 years?
I think we just started using it.
Okay.
It's been there for quite a while. You didn't create it, right?
No, I don't.
Kim was wondering why nobody was using it. People were paying these expenses out of their line items in their budget. When somebody retired or left and so now we're actually using the account like it's supposed to be used and it's working. It's fine. It's great.
Yeah, I think we're 100% funded when we did that
Yep.
last transfer. And then we put 75,000 in every year. And then as the year goes, we're paying against it and then replenishing it. I guess if we get to a point where we're paying out $75,000, we'd have to look at how much we're putting into that fund on a regular basis. But yeah, seems to be going okay right now.
So just looking at, page 6 is where the 1985 tax rate is projected, including the $1.87 in excluded debt for the high school. Actually just shows in the last bullet point at the bottom of the page. And then Kim has a very pretty bar chart on page 7. Kim, it doesn't actually show what the total of the two components are.
No, it doesn't actually on the chart. I think it's
Right here.
1985 is the estimated tax rate.
Yeah.
So it's just the combination of the two.
You're
17.
right. It's not on that sheet, and that's probably a good addition at some point, so that,
Yeah.
so you
put
don't
the
have to do
total on.
calculator.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's in the narrative
In the
right
narrative.
before this chart comes up, that
Yeah, it's on.
tax rate is 1985, but maybe it would help to have it on the same page.
So it's about a 7% increase.
Looks like it.
Tax rate?
Yeah.
It's on the recap.
1885 to 1812.
I'm guessing that's what you were typing in your
7.4.
calendar or calculator, so I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's not to say that I couldn't type it in wrong.
I'm gonna agree.
After all, I didn't find Anna's email either.
I feel like I need to take something off of every one of my sheets and add them all to one area. Like we've got 1985 on the tax
Area.
rate, we've got the breakdown and then the increase.
It's all there, though.
So, and basically, where that 7%, a lot of that is the excluded debt. It's starting to kick in.
Yep.
And that'll just grow next year, won't it?
We borrowed the majority, like 83% or something like that of the school. So it's not going to be a
Is the
Huge jump, but
Started kicking in, or
I'm sorry?
has the principal started kicking in?
It will this year, yeah, because we just permanently borrowed, I think, 97 million or something like that. So that should be included in this rate.
Okay,
here we go.
I thought it would be worse.
It initially, we anticipated it to be worse because we anticipated a higher interest rate than what we actually got. And we had some pretty good premiums that offset.
Right. So weren't they projecting like $1,000, $1,200 per average household, or?
That was the
Yeah.
original, that was the estimate that we had sort of stayed on.
But I think if you look at your assessed values jumping up 25%. So instead of you being at a $342,000 house, you're now on a $402,000 house. So if you base the percentages on a 342,000, you're gonna be right back up.
Right, but that was
Again, yeah,
the baseline we used, and
The time.
yeah.
we never changed.
Right. So this is the FY26 is the year that we experienced the kicker for the high school now.
Yep.
Mhm.
And FY27, it'll be, that is
Another
It should-
slight little
slight,
tick.
but nothing like the $1.87.
Right. It's just going to be a little increase to the $1.07.
Okay, all right.
And last year, part of the 36 cents was also the $1 million for the school, right?
Yes.
Borrowed $1 million initially.
Oh, was that the modulars?
No,
No, for the feasibility.
Oh, for the feasibility. Yeah, that was last year.
yeah, and that's part of the 36 cents that showed up last year.
So maybe next year, I'd recommend that we do start with the
Beginning of the alphabet?
The estimated, it's
Seven.
the way it's done there. I think I was a little afraid that we'd run out of time to review the actual budgets themselves. But anyone have any questions on those items? All right, thank you. Are there any other parts of the town manager's budget that need to be reviewed by the Financial Oversight Committee for recommendations to the town council that we haven't covered so far? I think of anything?
I think we've hit it all.
So,
Very thorough.
All right. So if not, I think we've covered everything in our recommendations. And
can I just?
Go ahead, Tom. Sure, you know.
I'm sorry. I know that you've sort of recommended everything at this point, but there was a follow-up we had brought up about IT. So there was not not another position. It was an expansion of one of the interns to have more hours based on the workload that IT has. So it just got popped into the wrong line item. So when we revise that budget, it'll all be back into, and there's still just the two IT interns, not another position. So we did not create another position in IT. Just want to, because we were sort of keeping with that level services, no new position. So I just want to make that clear that was a sort of an extension of an employee's hours and not a new position.
That may actually change the budget slightly, right? Lower the budget.
I think it lowers the budget. Yes.
Right. So there may be like, I think recreation, there might be a reduction there. There might be a reduction in IT.
Yep.
So how do we handle that? Do they need to recommend those again, or those are just changes that go on to the town?
I don't think that it would matter.
Internal
because
change after.
Council still changed the budget
Right.
based on whatever they're, oh yeah. No, I mean, recommended sort of the operating budget. Now they have a chance to pick it apart further. And I assume there will be changes as we go, and that'll just be some of them.
Okay.
Again, going the good way.
So I think therefore we have reviewed the town manager's budget and have found no changes to recommend to the town council. Would that be an accurate description?
I would
of our
say
review?
so.
Yes.
That being the case, any suggestions, thoughts that we would want to make to the town council in terms of things to think about beyond just the budget, or in terms of implications for future years that we'd like to include in anything we might communicate to?
I know we have along the way,
Or us, since we're here, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
we've suggestions for the future.
Right.
Don't ask me to repeat what they were, because they came up, so they'd be maybe in our minutes. And I'm thinking that we usually write the letter.
Right.
Nothing wrong with short and sweet either.
Yeah. I know we had a discussion when we talked about the benefits, the retirement, and that whole suite of expenses that were just blowing the budget. That if there were consultants, or if there was some kind of resource that the town could avail itself of to figure out something to help, moderate or find alternatives to try to deal with that, because that is just that's gonna be a permanent squeeze. And I know from my vantage point, if there's a little cost to that to deal with it, it seems like it would be well worth it, particularly if you could find somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, because we had a conversation around health insurance, and it's kind of, it is what it is unless we make really tinker with percentages and
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. So,
Right.
but more long-term thinking, like you're saying, of let's figure out if we can do it internally or get help and figure it out, because costs aren't going to go down. We know that.
They are not.
I mean, obviously I had a little bug in my bonnet, about the steps and the COLA increases, the combination, because it's higher than your typical private company increases. So again, you're fighting against the normal, increases, but you're kind of strapped because everything you're dealing with is basically unions and negotiations, as well as much of what you're dealing with your benefits and pensions, et cetera. But
And that's the fine line. At some point, you can't support what's happening, and then you have to lose people. And that is sort of where the school department was this year. There's nowhere to find it. And again, this is part of that whole revenue expense curve thing that has we've sort of got it under control here, but you can see the impact on just 1 year increase has on the budget. And we've been more than conservative with our increases the last 2 years, and we're still hurtling out of control. It's difficult to find that balance area where you're still providing services and you're still taking care of your people who take care of you. But sooner or later, it tips over. And we're just trying to limit that, unfortunately. But yeah, no, you're right. And these are all negotiation things. These are all contract things. These conversations that they're just a reality now. It's not a threat of, if we can't get this spending under control, we're going to lose people out of this unit. We're here.
Other
I want to commend the town manager and the finance director for the thoroughness, the paperwork, the presentation. Very impressive, very impressive.
Thanks, Rich. Most to Kim.
Well, we can tell that, things are jiving this way because it's become more of literally a review and not huge tinkering, and it's become more of a philosophical discussion about the future. So I think that shows that things have really shaped up in the budget department as far as putting actual policy to work and enforcing the vision.
Well, thank you. And again, I appreciate this process, because I think you don't realize how much we actually get out of it, and how we're taking notes and thinking about what we're going to change a little bit next year and what that looks like, and the projection for next year. And we have a capital stabilization fund because of our conversations at this table last year. Every time we talk about this, we find something else. And this is the beauty of having a transparent public system. And we all get to just say all these things and work it all out. So thank you all for having the conversations. I know it's a lot. It's a lot to look through, and it's a lot to look through again and again and again and again. So we appreciate all your input as well.
Yeah, I think on the school side, the scary part is the continuing special education pressure. And the scary part is continually having to add staff with the same number of students. That whole dynamic of more people needing to be involved with the same number of students. It's just without really necessarily getting more funding from anywhere but from our residents. But I mean, I have no solutions for that.
No, again, we've been having this conversation since November. That there aren't any solutions. And I haven't heard as much talk about why don't we remove Prop 2.5 than I've heard this year. And it's because nobody has a solution and there's no money from the state. And so the only solution is to allow towns to go over 2.5 to afford this kind of increase, which is why the law was put into place in the first place. So it's crazy. It's like people are talking about things that they know they shouldn't talk about, but
Well, I mean,
you got to think outside the box to solve these.
2.5, you just have to have the residents
Well,
vote for it.
Yeah, well, right. And here we are saying, we don't want to even get up to the levy.
Yeah.
Certainly don't want to go ask the residents for more money just to fund the operating budget, when we just asked everybody for $200 million to build a high school campus. So, yeah, certainly always a lot of balls in the air, and you got to pick the right ones out.
I'll ask you, Connor, and other town councilors, would a letter be sufficient, or would you like something else, or?
And I think as far as I'm concerned, a letter is sufficient. I think most of us hear and listen to a lot of the discussions. If there was different recommendations to add or remove stuff, then more might be necessary. But I think since everything looks good as far as the committee was concerned, a letter is sufficient.
Okay. All right.
Jim, I'd like to see a minimum 25-page document.
You don't have
Sure,
plans.
I can have one.
I was gonna say, you need stuff to read. I got stuff for you to read.
I can have margins, no problem. I can.
You could type very large so we could read it.
Yeah, right. That's a 25 font size. Very good. Well, I think our job is done. Anything else that we should discuss? Do we need to meet on Monday?
I think you should probably Zoom or something and approve your minutes and call. If you have no business, I mean, you should approve the minutes, I would assume. Doesn't have to be Monday.
For this?
Well, you have minutes from the other one. That's all you have to do is approve minutes, right? At this point.
Basically, yeah.
That and.
I suppose we could review the letter at that point, if we're gonna meet.
If we meet. In the past, we've had the chair writes the letter.
Right.
And then there's editing if possible, but Connor, can you refresh my memory? When is the budget hearing?
Yeah, it's not next Tuesday.
The 13th.
Tuesday.
Okay, so we've got time.
So we could do a Zoom on the 5th, and for the purposes of just doing the 2 minutes, and for the committee to just look at the letter I've written and make any changes you want it to do. And then I'll submit it at the end of the day, or submit it on Tuesday to.
I wasn't suggesting we won't set this up for you if you want to meet in person. I just thought it would be, you wouldn't have to worry about showing up if that's all you had to do was approve minutes.
That's a good idea.
I have a conflict, so I don't.
Oh, you can
But
see
I
it
don't.
ahead of time.
I don't think it'll be any.
All right.
problem.
Zoom is
It's
a-
a half a
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be much more than that. Is that all right with everybody?
What time are you looking at?
It's gonna be 4:00.
If I could beg the committee's politeness, maybe I could, 4:30 would be better for me.
4:30 is fine.
Yeah.
Anna, how's 4:30?
Yeah. Well, you give me a
Kathy,
couple
how's
minutes, right?
4:30 is fine. We're
Yeah.
zooming, right?
Yeah, I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Just we have to let
Jamie?
Jamie know that. And, well, when you post the agenda.
Is that, I mean, I've never done a Zoom only public meeting. Is that?
You can.
Yeah.
Okay,
You'll get a panelist.
First.
works for me. Yeah, and the purpose will be really review and approve April 30, April 24, April 30, and also review our letter to the town council.
Yes.
Well done, committee and counselors, for joining us as regularly as you have. Very much appreciated. It's been wonderful having your support. And excellent job. Make a great team. And as Tim said, it's very nice to be asking questions and not having to start from scratch. You've done the groundwork, that we used to, in the appropriations days, have to start from. So it's nice that way.
Thank you.
I would echo those same sentiments. It was pretty well run this year, and thank you all for participating in the process. And certainly the number of topics in which you broke them out in the agenda was helpful.
Great, thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Here, I second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Entertain a motion to adjourn the council meeting.
So moved.
Second, third.
And second, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourned. 2.
Very good.